Morning students. Today we'll start with respiratory system. First we'll discuss about the normal anatomy and histology of the respiratory tract, and then they will proceed to the pathological conditions. Now we all know that developmentally the respiratory system is an outgrowth from the ventral wall of the foregut. The midline trachea, it develops into two lateral outpouchings, that is the lung buds. The right lung bud then divides into three branches, that is main bronchi, and the left one into two. So the right lung, it consists of three lobes, whereas the left consists of two lobes. Now this main right and left bronchi, they branch dichotomously, giving rise to progressive smaller airways. This progressive branching of the bronchi ultimately forms the bronchioles, which are differentiated from the bronchi by the lack of cartilage and submucosal glands within their walls. Further branching of these bronchioles, they give rise to terminal bronchioles, which are less than 2 mm in diameter. Now the part of the lung distal to the terminal bronchiole is called the acinus. Now this terminal bronchiole, this after division gives rise to respiratory bronchioles, which then gives rise to the alveolar duct, and finally this alveolar duct, they divides into alveolar sacs, that is the blind end of the respiratory passage and which is also the site of the gaseous exchange. Now this acinus, this consists of these three parts, that is the respiratory bronchiole, alveolar duct and the alveolar sac. So the part of the lung distal to the terminal bronchiole, which consists of these respiratory bronchiole, alveolar duct and alveolar sac, it is called an acinus. Now a cluster of 3 to 5 terminal bronchioles, each with its accompanying acinus, is known as pulmonary lobule. So pulmonary lobule is a cluster of 3 to 5 terminal bronchioles, each with its accompanying acinus, which again consists of this respiratory bronchiole, alveolar duct and alveolar sac. Now this lobular concept or this lobular architecture, understanding of this concept is important because when we will further discuss the various diseases, pulmonary diseases, particularly the emphysema, then this lobular concept is necessary. Here we can see the normal acinus, a diagram of normal acinus. It is showing the respiratory bronchiole, the alveolar duct and the alveolus. So this is a normal acinus, and a cluster of 3 to 5 terminal bronchioles, each with the accompanying this acinus. This is called a lobule. Now coming to the histology of the respiratory tract, apart from the vocal cord, which is covered by the stratified squamous epithelium, the entire respiratory tree including the larynx, trachea, bronchioles, they are lined by pseudostratified columnar tall ciliated epithelial cells, that is pseudostratified ciliated columnar tall columnar epithelial cells, along with the admixed mucus secreting goblet cells, that is the respiratory epithelium. Now the numerous submucosal mucus secreting glands, these are found in the wall of the trachea and the bronchi, but not in the bronchioles, as we have already discussed that bronchioles, they lack cartilage and the submucosal mucosecreting glands. So this is the histology of the respiratory tract. Now coming to the microscopic structure of the alveolar wall or the alveolar septum. Now if we proceed from blood to air in this direction, then first comes the in the alveolar wall first comes the capillary endothelium, which lines the anastomosing network of capillaries. After this capillary endothelium, there is the basement membrane and the surrounding interstitial tissue. Now, in the thinner portion of the alveolar wall or alveolar septum, the basement membrane of the capillary endothelium and the basement membrane of the alveolar epithelial cells, these two are fused. These two are fused, and there is no interstitial space in between. But in the thicker portion of the alveolar septa, there is an interstitial space between these two basement membrane, which is known as pulmonary interstitium. And these pulmonary interstitium, these contain smooth muscle, elastic tissue, inflammatory cells, mast cell, etc., etc. Now coming to the alveolar epithelium, the alveolar epithelium, it consists of two types of cells, that is type 1 pneumocytes and type 2 pneumocytes. Now type 1 pneumocytes, which are flattened and plate-like cells, they cover up to 95% of the alveolar surface, and type 2 pneumocytes, which are rounded in shape, they cover the rest 5%. Now the function of this type 2 pneumocyte is to produce the pulmonary surfactant. Another function is that they are involved in repair of the alveolar epithelium after destruction of the type 1 pneumocytes. Now along with these type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes, third type of cell which we can find in the alveoli, that is the alveolar macrophages. These alveolar macrophages, they are found loosely attached to the alveolar epithelial cells, all lying freely within the alveolar space. These are derived from the blood monocytes and they belong to the mononuclear phagocyte system. Often they remain filled with the carbon particle and other phagocytous material. Actually, when we see under the microscope, these alveolar macrophages, these carbon-laden alveolar macrophages, they help us to identify the pulmonary tissue. Now, this alveolar wall, this is not solid, but it is perforated by numerous pores of Kohn, which permit the passage of bacteria and exudate between the adjacent alveoli. So, this is the microscopic structure of the alveolar wall. Let us see the diagram of the alveolar wall, then it will be clear to us. So this diagram shows the structure of the alveolar, microscopic structure of the alveolar wall or alveolar septa, showing the capillary lumen, the capillary endothelial cells, then the basement membrane, and finally the alveolar epithelium, which consists of these thin plate-like blue cells, that is the type 1 pneumocytes, and the type 2 pneumocytes, rounded type 2 pneumocytes. And there is an interstitial space between the capillaries and the endothelial cells. Now we will start the pulmonary pathologies. Now first we will study the obstructive and the restrictive pulmonary diseases. Now the diffuse pulmonary diseases, they are broadly classified into two categories. One is obstructive diseases, another is restrictive diseases. Now obstructive diseases, they are characterized by increase in the resistance to airflow due to partial or complete obstruction at any level from the trachea and large bronchi to terminal and respiratory bronchiole. So obstructive diseases are characterized by an increase in resistance to the airflow due to partial or complete obstruction at any level of the respiratory tract. Now these obstructive diseases, the major obstructive diseases, these include emphysema, chronic bronchitis, bronchiectasis, asthma, these four. And the restrictive diseases, they are characterized by reduced expansion of the pulmonary parenchyma due to decreased total lung capacity. And these restrictive diseases, these are due to this occurs in two general conditions. One is gestual disorder, in presence of normal lung parenchyma, where there is some disorder in the chest wall, but the pulmonary parenchyma is normal. For example, in poliomyelitis, severe obesity, pleural diseases, and kyphoscoliosis. Another condition is acute or chronic interstitial or infiltrative pulmonary diseases, where the disease lies in the pulmonary parenchyma. Example of these is acute respiratory distress syndrome or other chronic restrictive diseases, including the various occupational diseases like pneumoconiosis, interstitial fibrosis of unknown etiology, and others also. So these are restrictive diseases which are characterized by a reduced total lung capacity due to incomplete expansion of the lung parenchyma. Now, these obstructive and restrictive lung diseases, this can be differentiated. We can distinguish between these two types by pulmonary function test along with radiological and histological findings. Now, how we can differentiate between these two by pulmonary function test? That in obstructive diseases, there is decrease in the maximum airflow rate during forced expiration. There is limitation of the maximum airflow rate during forced expiration, which is usually expressed as forced expiratory volume at 1 second, or FEV1. So FEV1 will be decreased in obstructive pulmonary diseases, whereas in restrictive diseases there is decreased total lung capacity and decreased vital capacity. Whereas the maximum airflow rate during expiration, it is either normal or reduced proportionately in restrictive diseases. So in restrictive diseases there is reduced total lung capacity, while the expiratory flow rate is either normal or it is reduced proportionately. So this is how we can differentiate between obstructive and restrictive diseases. So this is all for today. In the next class we will gradually discuss about one by one the obstructive diseases, that is emphysema, chronic bronchitis, bronchiectasis, and so on in the next classes. Thank you.